UFC 302 was not a good card. In fact, you could even venture to say that it was a bad card because there was 12 fights, only 3 finishes. That's terrible. And on top of that, we had some very boring fights, boring lay and pray type of fights that are never really fun to watch. And on top of that, we had some very sketchy judges' scorecards, which leaves us in awe of how this can keep happening. And on top of that, there was some terrible refereeing. It seems like the New Jersey State Athletic Commission is just at an all-time low. And this is just a thing that keeps happening in the UFC, and nothing gets done about it. I understand we got to go to these different places, but the New Jersey State Athletic Commission was terrible last night. That is definitely something we're going to touch on. We're going to go through every single one of these fights. I'm going to give you my thoughts on that. But before we do that, let's recap. Because I put out some videos this week. We're starting to get a little bit more active on the YouTube. So if you're enjoying the content, please like and subscribe. Official Picks. Made a video giving you my official picks for every single fight on the card. We went 9-3. Only losses were Phil Rowe, Cesar Almeida, and Alex Morono. Everything else, we got correct. Once again, those are official picks. We're going to keep track record of this, starting with UFC 302. The best bets. The best bets video I put out on Friday. If you tailed those, you were up a very small amount, 0.07 units. We lost the Cesar Almeida bet. We cashed the over 1.5 pretty easily. The Andre Lima, Kevin Holland parlay cashed pretty easily as well. And then the prop bets just couldn't get there, man. Grant Dawson was just doing his work on top and just never really had a chance to get a finish. Joe Solecki was content to lose the fight off of his back, so we lose those. But in all, we went 2-3, I guess, if you count these two props at the end. We went 2-3, but we profited 0.07 units. And that is a great video. We're going to continue doing that. As far as the betting recap, so these are all of my official bets in the HOF Picks Discord. We had a profitable night, plus 4.35 units. We lost both of our money lines. We hit all of our parlays right here. And then the round props were more of my confident picks. You know, the fight to start round 4 in Costa Strickland was my biggest bet of the night. Cashed that with ease. Over 1.5 was my second biggest bet. Cashed that one with ease. And then the props we're not really that great. I mean, a lot of finishing props here, and we didn't have a lot of finishes. But we did hit the Kevin Holland round 1 sub at plus 600, which brought us back there on the props. So plus 4.35 units, and we stay on a heater for the pay-per-view cards. I think we're positive plus 25 units on pay-per-views this year. So if you're looking to get in on a time, pay-per-views are the time. And if you signed up last week with the code DIAMOND, you're going to get the entire month for 50% off. So good stuff there. And then, of course, I gave these out on the Best Bets video as well. We had a clean sweep on the Daily Fantasy. Clean sweep. An unbelievable night on Daily Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy, we went 3 for 3. All 6 of these plays hit. 3 for 3, $300, won $900. Better picks, 3 for 3 again. 6 for 6 across the board. So in total, I picked 12 props on Daily Fantasy and went 12 for 12. So if you didn't tail those, maybe you should tail them next week. I'll throw them on the Best Bets video as well. All 6 of these plays were on that Best Bets video. So that's some free game for you right there. Code HeyJive on both of these apps, Underdog Fantasy and Better Picks. I'll throw those links down in the description. Sign up for those. You'll get a deposit bonus up to $250. And next week, we can look to cash in as well. Let's get into the recap. First fight of the night, Andre Lima, Mitch Raposo. It looked like a sparring match, man. I don't know what Mitch Raposo was really doing because this is your UFC debut. I don't know if he was just banking on getting, 30-40% of Andre Lima's purse because he missed weight and he didn't want to get knocked out or look bad in front of, his home crowd. But he didn't really go for it, man. And somehow, David Torelli still gave him the fight. I thought it was a pretty clear 30-27 for Andre Lima. But Dave Torelli, it's probably David, but Dave Torelli might be blind in there, or he might have just rigged the scorecards for the hometown guy because, good Lord, it looked like they were sparring and Andre Lima was just getting the better of him in almost every exchange. Raposo never went for it. He was losing the fight the entire time. Andre Lima was landing some really nice leg kicks. And he won the fight pretty clear. I thought it was 30-27. Should have been 30-27 across the board. And just an awful scorecard. Like, that needs to be investigated. 29-28. And that was just the start for the bad judges scores on this card. It was just disgusting. Andre Lima, though, missed weight. He looked like a bantamweight in there. He looked massive. So I don't know if he's going to have to move up or not, but it looked like a sparring match. Raposo never really was able to stand in the pocket, and Andre Lima was just chipping away at him at range and does what he does best, kickboxes, and he got the win. We move on. Eileen Perez, Jocelyn Edwards. Whole lot of ass. And I'm not talking about the body part, okay? Well, maybe I am. But this fight was pretty boring. Okay, Eileen Perez, she's a grappler. She's a wrestler. Earlier in the first round, she was getting takedowns. She was getting reversed. And then as Edwards would be on top, she would get reversed. And then it would just constant cycle. One reverses the other. Get into round 2. Edwards is starting to come on. She hits her with a headbutt. Nothing was done about that. But the week or 2 weeks before that, when Pierre Rodriguez smashed a headbutt when she was in top position, she got DQ'd. So inconsistency there. No point taken. Really not that much time went off. And Eileen Perez was back in there. And then she lands a spinning back fist. So she's up 2-0. We go into the third round. And it's a competitive round. And Eileen Perez ultimately gets the win. But Eileen Perez, fight IQ was just not there. Fight IQ is not there for either girl. It's just a whole lot of ass of a fight. Ass fight IQ. Ass strategies. Like, Eileen Perez could just take her down. She could stay on top of her. I don't know what was going on with that. But she couldn't hold top position. And neither girl really inflicted too much damage other than that spinning back fist. It was a very, very boring fight. But in the end, Eileen Perez gets to do her twerk and she gets another W. Next fight, backyard brawl right here. Basil Hafez, Mickey Gall. I put the scorecards on there because this one is a little bit controversial as far as these scorecards because it was a close fight. A straight up brawl. Backyard brawl. Basil Hafez wins by unanimous decision. I thought Basil probably won the first round. Second round was a little bit closer. And I thought the third round was pretty much Mickey Gall. So only one of the judges gave Mickey Gall round 3. Now, Basil Hafez is throwing with an insane heat. Like, he's just throwing massive hooks. Not really technical hooks. They're not really set up the best. But he's just swinging hard. I don't know if that's just what the judges liked. He did take the punches pretty well. Like, he never really got super rocked, so maybe that was just why. But, yeah, it was a backyard brawl. I thought this should have been fight of the night. Fight of the night went to the main event. I thought this was a lot better of a fight. Best fight of the card, in my opinion, because both guys came to throw down. Both guys took some big shots, and they just kept coming forward, kept swinging bombs. It was a good fight. Best fight of the night for me. I thought Basil probably could have won 29-28 if you give him round 1 or 2. But honestly, I thought Mickey Gall had a chance to win on the scorecards, but you judges were not giving it to him. We move on. This is the wasted potential of the welterweight division, man. Phil Rowe's 6'3", but he has no idea how to use his range. Not a single clue. And so I'm trying to get pictures for this slide, right? I searched Phil Rowe versus Jake Matthews. All the pictures look like this. This is a problem, Phil Rowe, because if you're letting a smaller guy like Jake Matthews get on the inside of you, and this is what you do, you just shell up, you're not going to win fights. You got to keep him at range. You're 6'3". Pump your jab. And when he did pump his jab, he was winning. He looked good. He had a nice stinging jab, but he was just never consistent with it. And that allowed Jake Matthews to get on the inside right here. He would just throw a nice little lead hook or a jab, get on the inside, and Phil Rowe shells up like this. If you shell up like this, you have no offense. So the guy's just able to tee off on you wherever he wants. He can rip the body, and then after he rips the body, he can go back upstairs, and then he can go whip another right hook to your head, and that's what he did. That's all he did. Just got it in on the inside in the feet, bang, 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 unleash a combo, and Phil Rowe, no counters because he's sitting there like this. You're 6'3". Keep your jab, stay out of range, and when he comes towards you, you back up and keep your range. You don't just shell up like this. And then, of course, in round 3, Phil Rowe gets on top position, then he gets reversed, and he can't get out from the bottom. and that ultimately loses them the fight. So Phil Rowe takes a loss. Jake Matthews gets the W. Phil Rowe's he seems like he has all the potential in the world, but he just doesn't put it together. We move on. Grant Dawson. This one, it was not really a beauty to watch. I will tell you that. But it was a dominant performance for Grant Dawson. He was a massive favorite. And ultimately, I think it just comes down to Joe Solecki just playing the jiu-jitsu game. Like, dude, you're going up against Grant Dawson, who's one of the best grapplers in the lightweight division. If you're on your back against him, you're not going to win the fight. If you're trying to play the jiu-jitsu game and it doesn't work within the first minute or two you're on your back, you need to try to get up. And I know Grant Dawson's going to do a great job at keeping you on the ground, but Joe Solecki was never really trying to get up. He would just put his feet on the hips. He would try to push him away so that he wouldn't be able to land ground and pound. But then you got to get up. If you get separation from Dawson, you need to try to get up eventually, because you're not going to win the fight off your back when he's just landing some short elbows, some punches from the top. You're going to lose the fight. It's just going to be 15 minutes of you on your back getting beat up. And round one, he did land that little glancing elbow that cut up Grant Dawson, and one of the judges gave him the round, which is kind of crazy to me, because Grant Dawson was on top of him for like 4.5 minutes, and he wasn't just laying on him. Like, he was still landing some good ground and pound. Joe Solecki lands one elbow that I guess cuts his eyebrow type thing, and he wins the round off of his back. It's pretty crazy. I thought it should have been 30-27 pretty clearly for Grant Dawson, but one of the judges thought Joe Solecki won that round. It's insane how wild these scorecards are. We move on. Jailton Almeida, Magomedov. I was impressed with how big Jailton Almeida looked in there, because Jailton Almeida at one point in time looked like he could have been a very big 205er, or at least that should have been his weight class. I don't even know that he can make 205 anymore. He's like 240, 245, and he looks massive. His arms looked a lot bigger. Obviously, if he gets your back, he's got an insane squeeze. He has insane athleticism and just the explosiveness unlike any other heavyweight on the roster. And it was just easy for him here. Just blast double. Ultimately, I think he picked a leg and then got Romanov off balance and then just kind of forced his way into a trip, got him on his back, and then eventually took his back, looked for the rear naked choke, threw the hooks in, and Romanov pretty much just gave him his neck eventually. Like, he defended for like a minute or two and then made one adjustment, and Almeida was under his neck, and that was wraps. Did Jailton Almeida get tattoos? I'm actually wondering that, because last fight, I don't think he had tattoos on his arm. Now that he's got tattoos, he looks a little bit scarier. But he looks massive in there. Like, he was a smaller heavyweight, but he's starting to fill that frame out pretty big. But a big step down for Almeida, and he should have made easy work for him, and he did. We move on. Feature prelim. Not a great fight. Not a great fight. Round one was great. Roman Kopylov is a dangerous man on the feet, but then he just gassed out. Like, in the first round, he dropped Cesar Almeida. He was looking sharp, hitting that left hand. Almeida came out in southpaw, which is not really like him. And I think he probably did that to try to avoid the body kicks and the head kicks from Roman Kopylov, try to negate those weapons for him. And then he just started getting hit with the left hand. Then he switches to orthodox. And then he gets cracked with the left hand again. And then we get into round two. And Roman Kopylov doesn't look very fresh. Cesar Almeida's starting to put it together, rip into the body with his hands, going upstairs, landing a nice right hand. And then Kopylov starts shooting takedowns. And once he gets the takedowns, all he's got to do is lay on him, because Almeida can't get up. He doesn't want to try to give his back. And Kopylov did a great job of getting him away from the cage. Every time Almeida would scoot towards the cage, Kopylov would cut it off. He would get into the position where Almeida couldn't go there anymore. Keep him in the middle of the octagon, and Almeida's just pretty much helpless at that point. Get into round three, and it's pretty much the same. Kopylov is gassed. Almeida's piecing him up on the feet, and then he shoots a takedown, gets it, and then you can tell Kopylov's not going to be able to do anything on the top. He's too gassed, and if he tries to really let anything go, Almeida's probably going to get up. So he's laying on him. Herb Dean stands him up, and then there's about 2 minutes left, maybe 90 seconds. So Almeida's got his chance, because I thought Almeida could have won round 2, and 2 of the judges gave it to him based on damage, because he was doing a lot of good work in round 2 with his hands, with the kicks, and then he gets taken down with about 2 minutes left, and Kopylov does nothing with that. So if you're going off damage, Cesar Almeida wins round 2. So I think it's 1-1 going into the third. Almeida's doing great work on the feet, and then he gets taken down. He gets held there for about 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. They stand him up. There's about 90 seconds left, and Almeida goes back to work. If he can go and land some good shots, then he can steal this round, steal this fight. He lands a few shots, and then bang, right back on his back. And that was wraps. So, yeah, I thought Kopylov should have won the fight. I had a bet on Cesar Almeida, but it was a hope. It was a hope and a dream to me to be like, maybe we get a judge's decision in our favor. I think Kopylov won rounds 1 and round 3, and then I thought Almeida won round 2 based on damage. But one of these judges gave round 3 to Cesar Almeida, which I think is a little bit crazy. But if you're going off damage, I guess it makes sense. But yeah, I mean, these scorecards are all over the place. Like one judge 30-27 Kopylov, one judge 29-28 Kopylov, one judge 29-28 Cesar Almeida. It's just, I understand you want to get different perspectives, but what the hell are we doing? It's just wild. It's wild. Death, Taxes, and Randy Brown 29-28, because Randy Brown should take Phil Rowe and give him some lessons, because Randy Brown knows how to use his length like he should. Like, he's 6'3". You should be able to stay at range and pick your opponent apart. Just stay on that jab, stay on those front kicks, keep your opponent at range, and do your work there. He did that perfectly in round 1, landed a really nice knee at the end of round 1. We get into round 2. He gets caught with the right hand, and Dos Santos takes him to the ground, really threatening with that rear naked choke. I thought it was almost going to be over for a second there. But Randy Brown finds his way out of it, so it's 1-1 going into the third, and then Randy Brown goes back to work and does what he does best on the feet, just picking him apart at range, and landed another good knee, I believe, that cut open Zaleski towards the ear right here. And he picks up the win, 29-28. It's just Randy Brown's thing, man. If he wins, he's probably going to win by decision, and it's probably going to be 29-28, because he always seems to get one round away. Just one round gets away from him, but he manages to win the other 2. So, Death, Taxes, and Randy Brown, 29-28. Yeah. This shit made me throw up, bro. So they moved Alex Morono, Nico Price to the main card instead of Jailton Almeida or Alexander Romanov, and they are regretting that decision right now. This was one of the most sloppy fights I've ever seen on a main card in recent memory. Like, just disgusting display from these guys, honestly. Neither guy has the physical capabilities to knock the other out because they're too old, they're too slow, they don't have enough cardio, and their chins are decent. Like, they're not great chins, but they're decent. And Alex Morono gassed out after like one round, and then Nico Price still had some gas, but he just has no real technique left on his punches anymore. Like, he's just winging these disgusting hooks, and they don't even look like he's intending to land. Like, he's just wailing his arms out there. But he wins. He wins 29-28. I thought that was definitely a fair decision. I thought he won rounds 2 and 3. And got on top of him, did some damage there. Alex Morono's looking for subs, can't find him. And Nico Price gets a win. But, bro, these two guys were kind of backyard brawling in there, and the crowd was not into it whatsoever. Like, if they're out there throwing hands like they were, the crowd is usually on their feet cheering. But nobody gave a shit, because you could just watch that and want to throw up because it was disgusting. Just a disgusting display of mixed martial arts at the highest level. This is a main card fight on a pay-per-view. People paid $85 for this shit. And then you get two old guys in there. that can't last more than 5 minutes, can't throw a punch to knock the other guy out. Like, there was no technique on any of their punches. Just all looping stuff that just smacks you in the face and doesn't really do anything. Disgusting. Kevin Holland comes to save the card, man. Thank God they put Kevin Holland on this card, and thank God they gave him an opponent like Oleksiejczuk, because we needed a finish, and we needed a finish that was exciting. Like, the only finish before this was Almeida choking out Romanov in the first round, and it wasn't really an exciting finish. You know, this was an exciting finish because Kevin Holland got cracked with a left hand, sat on his butt, and then he goes for the armbar. And Oleksiejczuk's a tough motherfucker. And you could tell, based on his past fights, this dude's not tapping to shit. His last fight against Michel Pereira, he gets rear naked choked from the standing position, I believe. And he gets choked unconscious, like he's out. He's sleeping. So in this one, Kevin Holland gets his arm. He transitioned it to where he's on his back and he's cranking on it. That thing either dislocates or it breaks a little bit. And Oleksiejczuk just doesn't give a fuck. He's like, I'm not tapping to this shit. And Kevin Holland's talking to Herb. And he's like, I don't want to fucking destroy this arm. So can you please stop the fight? Because it's already dislocated or something's wrong with it. He stops the fight. There was no tap. But it was a good stoppage because Oleksiejczuk's arm probably could have been literally ripped off on on pay-per-view television. Kevin Holland gets the win. Obviously, the grappling advantage for him in this fight was off the charts. Oleksiejczuk's grappling or submission defense is just terrible. He gets cracked, put on his ass, and still finds a way to win. But after the fight, me and Kevin Holland called himself a gatekeeper, which is it's funny. It's funny because if you look at his wins, they're all against guys that aren't really on the rise. They're old guys that have been in the UFC for a while. And he wins those fights. But when he fights the prospects, like a Jack Della or a Hamzat, or even a Michael Venom Page, a guy that they want to build up, he's losing. So he's not a very good gatekeeper at this point. He's just beating guys that are older, that have been in the UFC a long time, and picking up wins that way. But he called himself a gatekeeper. I think that's funny. I think it's respectable. It's good humor from Kevin Holland, because if you call yourself a gatekeeper, you pretty much admitted, like, I don't have the highest ceiling anymore. Like, I am what I am. I'm going to fight every 3 months, pick up my paychecks. I'll fight whoever. If I win, if I lose, doesn't matter. And we can keep it rolling. Co-main event. Absolute snooze fest, man. Absolute snooze fest. Now, I was happy about this because obviously I cashed my bet on the fight to start round 3. And it really wasn't much of a sweat. But if you watched my video before, top 10 most overrated fighters in the UFC, Paulo Costa was number 3 on the list. And we saw last night why. Because there was really no game plan. Like, if you're going against Sean Strickland, you cannot let that guy just walk you down. He's just going to pick you apart. Now, he landed some good leg kicks early. Maybe he just depended on those doing more than they did. It did look like it affected Sean Strickland, but throughout the fight, he just kept moving forward. Paulo Costa's on his back foot. He's slowing down, and Strickland's just able to walk forward, land those teep kicks, land a 1-2, land a right hand as he's circling off. It was just super boring. That's just a methodical breakdown from Sean Strickland. And it's an easy win for him. I thought it was 50-45. I'm going to agree with Chris Lee here. If you look at the scorecards, I thought that was an easy 50-45 for Sean Strickland. I didn't really see a round that Paulo Costa won. He was always fighting off the back foot. He never outlanded him. Never really landed anything super significant. Maybe a couple liver shots here and there. Some solid leg kicks, but Strickland was walking him down, landing more punches every round. So 50-45, in my opinion, for Sean Strickland. Costa never even looked for a takedown. Never even thought about it. And he had mat burn on his foot. So obviously he's training some wrestling, some grappling, but he just never thought about it. And then one of these judges, Dave Torelli, once again. So Dave Torelli gave Mitch Raposo the win in the first fight of the night. Then he's judging the co-main event. the co-main event of a pay-per-view, the same guy that gave Mitch Raposo the first fight of the night, give Paulo Costa 49-46 the win, and not even a razor close win. He gave Paulo Costa the first 4 rounds of the fight. That's insane. What are we talking about right now? They cannot have this type of judging at the highest level in the UFC. It's disgusting. At worst, at the absolute worst, it's 49-46 for Sean Strickland. But to give Paulo Costa the win 4 rounds to 1, that's criminal. That needs to be investigated. He should be banned. And Dana White, I think, said to send him down to the minor leagues again. Just fucking get him out of here. That's 2 terrible scorecards in one night. 2 just awful scorecards. He gave not even like just messing up 1 round. He gave 2 fighters the win in fights where they got dominated. Fights that they didn't even have a chance to win. Paulo Costa and Mitch Raposo won those fights in the eyes of Dave Torelli. That's terrible. Get this guy out of the sport. Get this guy out of the profession. Maybe get this guy an eye test. Check his eyes. Check his brain. Does he have something going on with his brain? Or maybe, just maybe, check some bank accounts. Maybe he's getting some funds sent to his bank to give these fights to these fighters, because there's no other explanation. Because if you're watching the same fight that everyone else is watching, you cannot tell me Paulo Costa won that fight, nor did he win it 4 rounds to 1. Easy win for Sean Strickland. And he proves why he's the number 1 contender. I would love to see him get back into a title fight soon, because he's just a tough guy to deal with, man. He's a tough guy to deal with. And I don't know that they're really going to be rushing him back there, because they got so many contenders. You got Izzy versus DP soon, or DDP soon, or at least we think. And then you got Whitaker versus Hamzat. And I'm sure they want Whitaker versus Hamzat to be the number 1 contender fight after that. So we'll see. But Paulo Costa, another loss. He's 1-4 in his last 5. Not a good look. Overrated as hell. Main event. Is Islam beatable? Last night, I thought he looked beatable, man. And going into this fight, I thought he would look beatable, because I thought Poirier would have a lot of success on the feet. And if you watched my video on that, I broke down why. Southpaw versus Southpaw. But I'll be the first to admit, man, I was impressed by how Islam handled himself on the feet. And I don't know if that's just due to the takedown threat from Islam, and that's always something he's going to carry into every fight. He's always going to have the takedown threat, which ultimately opens up the opportunities for him to land on the feet. And I know DP, it's like floor is lava. Floor is lava for DP. And he did good defending takedowns. He did a lot better than I thought defending takedowns. I thought it would probably be round 1 and 2 where Islam's on top of him, wet blanketing him, but I think he would probably survive. And then round 3 would be the time where he find an opportunity to sink in a submission. But DP looked solid in the submission defense category, in the takedown defense category. And even if he did get taken down, he was able to find his way back to the feet relatively quickly, unless he got thrown in that body triangle or that body lock. Because once you get into that thing, Islam's too good taking your back. He's just going to keep you there. And DP did what he did to stay safe in those areas. So round 1, pretty clear to Islam. Got his back. And then DP was able to survive. Round 2 gets a little bit interesting, because DP's stuffing takedowns. He's having some success on the feet. That's an arguable round for DP. 2 of the judges gave it to him. Round 3, Islam takes the back again, I believe. And then he wins that round. And then we go to round 4. I thought that was a pretty clear round for DP. I mean, he cut up Islam right here with that elbow, made him start gushing blood. And I thought that was a pretty clear round for him. So it really could have been 2-2 going into the 5th round. And it's like winner takes it here. It could be winner takes it. And only one of the judges gave him 2-2. So ultimately, he was down 3-1 on 2 of the judges' scorecards. So it wasn't winner takes it. But one of the judges did have it for 2-2 for DP. So it's like winner takes it. And then it looked to me like DP didn't want to get takedown in that last round. He wasn't really letting the hands go. And then ultimately, he's defending takedowns. And then he just gets caught with that one little trip where Islam grabs his foot. He falls. And then Islam jumps on his neck, threatening the ghillie, which would have been just a disgusting way to lose the fight. If Islam gillied him in the 5th round with a possibility that it's 2-2 going into the 5th, that would have just been disgusting. But threatens the ghillie, gets into a mount position, and then throws in the darce, and it was wraps, man. Hell of a fight, though. I thought Poirier, I was just so impressed with Poirier, man. I was impressed with just the heart. Like, we already know Poirier is such a dog in there. But for him to have that much success defensively grappling against Islam's so good on the ground. For him to have that success was impressive to me. And just the way he was able to battle through that adversity, it was super cool to see. And Islam, he looked beatable. But at the end of the day, he's just so well-rounded that he can almost take on any opponent and beat them in with one facet. If he's going to face a striker, he can beat him by taking him down and submitting him. If he's going to face a wrestler, he's probably the better striker. Like, if he faces Arman, he's probably the better striker. So he could probably win the fight that way. Now, he could mix in the wrestling and have success there, but if he's facing Arman Tsarukyan, I would probably take Islam Makhachev striking. And I was one that was bashing on his striking. And I knew he'd improved over the years. Like, I knew Islam's not a bad striker, but I just thought DP would be a little bit more of a higher level when we're talking southpaw versus southpaw. And Islam looked good, man. I thought his hands looked really good. Obviously, a big thing for me with that breakdown was Islam's not going to be able to use his kicks. He's not going to be able to use his kicks against the southpaw. So he's going to have to rely on his hands, and I thought his hands looked pretty solid. Just when he goes against orthodox strikers, he just really relies on those kicks, and those kicks are a great weapon for him. Didn't have him here. His hands look pretty damn good. But he's beatable. He's beatable, man. It just comes down to who's going to be able to beat him. Eventually, I think he will lose, because another thing that is different from him and Habib's just takedowns all the time. All the time. And Islam has the skills on the feet that at times he can find himself striking with guys, and that's where he's capable of getting elbowed in the forehead right here, like getting bloodied up. And I think Habib was pissed at him. Because Habib's just like, dude, just take him down. Just take him down. You're giving him an opportunity to win this fight. But Islam feels comfortable on the feet, and he feels like he can win the fight that way. So that's a little bit different there. I think he's beatable, but I do believe he's the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter in the UFC right now. I know Dana came out and said Jon Jones is it's stupid to say Islam's the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter. I think Islam is. He is. He's the most active guy in the pound-for-pound rankings. Jon Jones is not active. Islam's the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter in the UFC right now. And, I think Dana's always had this hard-on for Jon Jones, just because he likes to claim he has the baddest dude on the planet. And ultimately, I think he's probably trying to sell sell Jon Jones' next fight a little bit, saying that he is the true number 1 pound-for-pound fighter, but we'll see. I think Islam is, man. Maybe that could be a separate video, but that's the recap for UFC 302. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed. We'll be back here with more content. We got a live going down tonight as well. Sunday service going down tonight on the YouTube live, right here on the HOF Picks YouTube channel. Till next time, HOF Picks. Yeah.